Hey, it's Matthew Mickey, and I will be doing my Wargaming for Wednesday, October 22nd. Right, so starting off on the daily chart, we can see what the probabilities for candle science is using the past 2 days. So Monday and Tuesday, what the probabilities for open, high, low, close the day is going to be. Well, the first thing I noticed is that we have a 78% probability of being bullish, meaning closing above the settlement. Starting at the previous day low, there's a 61% probability that we get below it. There's an 88% probability that we close above it. Moving to a settlement from yesterday, there's a 77% probability that we close above it. There's a 68% probability that we close above previous day open. And then there's a 55%, 53% probability that we get above previous day high with a 68% probability that we close below it. All right, moving to the daily profile. Right, we can see that London was kind of contradicting. Asia brought us up, London brought us down, and now we're going to put probabilities on what we are expecting today. So short, false, broken, short, true. Right out the gate, we can see that London OU, the midpoint of London, has an 81% probability that the mode is at 9:30 to 10. Right, so we've got to factor that in. Right, we know we went long, so that mode increases and that probability increases by 5%. That is located right here where it says London OU. Right, so we know that is one of the probabilities that we're going to expect price to come up and net off of before we go down. Right, another one is going to be this P12 high. Right, so let's look at, right, first and foremost is a 65% probability that we do go false, saying that we breached to this side of the 7:30 to 8:30 range. Now there's a 66 probability that between now and 11:30 we're going to hit this right here, right? So we're going to be looking at that as well, right? So if we hit false, we can see that in this case we can expect a low of the day between 9:30 and 10:30, right? Right? We can expect a high of the day in the day, right? We can expect, if this is the scenario, that we either spike higher at 9:30 and then drop, but 9 and 10 should be down, and then we should be expecting the low of the day to be in by this point, right? Around 10:15, 10:30, and then we start going up, and then we'll let the afternoon range determine what we do there, right? All right, so let's put our high of the day data in here. We know high of the day or low of the day is 9:30 to 10:30, between 0.3 and 0.7. And then we can expect the, nope, sorry, I messed that up, 0.3 to 0.7, 9:30 to 10:30, right? And then for our high of the day, we can see that we're expecting it to happen at the end of the day, unless that 2 o'clock candle, and we're going to talk about that, was the high of the day, and then it does have data to support the high of the day already be placed in, 20.6. So our current high of the day is at 0.22, right? So we know right here, this will go from 0.2 to 0.6, right? We know that the highest probable time is from 15 to 1600, right? So we know that this is like the highest probable low of the day to high of the day of all the scenarios, right? Um, so we'll keep that in mind. right? But now we have to figure out what a long true looks like, right? A long true says it's going to go with the 30% of the time that we can't breach this low by 11:30, and what that would look like. So that, right, we're going to come over to long true. We can see that it supports 6:45 to 8:30 low of the day and in the day high of the day. Currently, your low of the day is at 7:45, so that's supported, right? All right, we said from 6:30 to 8:30. Sorry about that. Couldn't hit mute fast enough. Probably blew out some eardrums there. And then that was between point 0.2 and point 0.5. 6, 7:30 to 8:30. Right, and then the high of the day was 15 to 1600. Let's get the data on the price part of it. We can see it's between 0.6 and 0.9. And once it updates, dang it, I put the wrong one in. Let me do this. 0.6 to 0.9, 15 to 1600. Did the wrong one. So let me do the low of the day. We know that the low of the day was 7:30, 08:30, and then looking at the low of the day, it's between 0.2 and 0.5. This cluster right there. There we go. So a couple of things that pay attention to, right, is that this would be the highest probability. How we determine if it's going to be a true day. If we can't get below the 9:30, we can't get below the 9 o'clock 50%. We can't, 10 o'clock can't take out 9 o'clock slow, right? But ultimately, we can't take out this 7:30 to 8:30 low right here. By 10 o'clock, we should have a good feeling if this is going to be a long true, which is the 30%. The 70% or the 65%, we have to re-enter the numbers because I messed it up, would be this one right here, where we have 9:30 to 10:30 low of the day and the end of the day high of the day. And we said that that was going to be 0.3 to 0.7. But all of these, which I want to point out, support the fact that previous day low, besides the long true, but this supports that that previous day low gets wiped, but then we suck back into the range instantly, right, between 9:30 and 10. And then high day was 0.2, 0.6, end of day. There we go. Right? All of this one supports, right? If volatility continues to decrease, because it was expanding last week, now we're seeing it contract a little bit, right? Bringing that 10-day median range on down. So we're not expecting this whole 437 day. We still can get it if volatility is expanding, but like we are not in the market where volatility should be expanding to the upside. It should be expanding to the downside. Like last month, we saw volatility expanding to the upside. We're not in that market anymore or those volatility conditions, so we still expect that, right? So this is obviously the highest probable movement today. Right now, what we're going to do is we're going to go see what the probabilities. We know that this London OU has a high probability, and what the probability of this previous 12-hour high and previous day high to bring it up, to bring back down, right? So right now, right, we can expect some kind of signature like this, right? That's the highest probability, right? If at market open we can't reverse, right, then we're obviously expecting, you know, not that they come back down and retrace off of Asia OU or somewhere within the 730 to 830 range, and then we just go like this, right? And then that would look like this kind of day, right? And it still points to the fact that do not expect that 437 high of the day. All right, so with that being said, they both support these numbers and a strong close above. Our job is to pay attention to, is the morning going to reverse and then make a new low of the day below previous day low, or somewhere in this, or was this low of the day that currently is in good enough for the long true to keep moving its way up? All right, so hopefully this was helpful. Later, haters.